My son was in a car accident and was critically ill. I refused to save him just to save money to help my husband's ex-wife's son collect 88.88 million yuan for a betrothal gift. In my previous life, my husband's ex-wife died in childbirth, so my husband had to take the child back and let Muho had just given birth raise him. I wanted to raise both children well, but I didn't expect that a car accident would lead to my own son's tragic death. From then on, all my attention shifted to my husband's ex-wife's child. After training a playboy into a top student, I barely had time to feel proud before my husband's supposedly dead ex-wife returned and took her child away. My husband, who had by then regained his business empire, asked me for a divorce. Only then did I realize that he had only married me as a nanny after going bankrupt and never wanted his ex-wife to suffer. Even worse, my child hadn't died by accident. After learning the truth, I tried to take them to court, but they killed me together. My soul floated above, and I watched with my own eyes as they poured my ashes down the sewer and celebrated in the villa I had worked so hard to build. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the day I picked up my husband's ex-wife and her child. I heard chaotic sounds and suddenly realized I was lying on the delivery bed the baby had just been taken from my belly. My husband came over smiling and said, "Wife, I've asked the nurse to put the two children together. Thank you for being so magnanimous." He held my hand, but I felt ice cold. I had returned to the day my husband took back his ex-wife's child. At that time, he had just gone bankrupt, was abandoned by his ex-wife, and came to work at my company. I discovered his business talent and started mentoring him. Eventually, we fell in love and got married. I became pregnant, but when I was 8 months along, I learned that his ex-wife was also pregnant and about to give birth. The shock sent me into premature labor. After I gave birth, I learned that his ex-wife had died during childbirth. Her family demanded my husband take the child in. Seeing his hesitation, I felt sympathy and agreed. I thought it was just a poor orphan baby. But that moment marked the beginning of my nightmare. On the way home from a hospital, my mother-in-law got into a car accident while holding my son, and he died on the spot. I sank into despair until the ex-wife's child called me Mom, which deeply comforted me. I gave up managing the company and dedicated myself to raising him. He was naturally naughty, so I poured my heart into his education. On his graduation day, my husband and I handed the company over to him. But right after the transfer, my husband's ex-wife came back and said, "Ellie, you've occupied my home long enough. It's time to return my husband and son." I was stunned. My husband slapped me and shouted, "This is all your fault. If you hadn't insisted on getting legally married, Diana and I wouldn't have divorced, and she wouldn't have had to suffer. Now get out." The child I had raised looked at me with disgust and said, "You made my mother wander the streets for years. For raising me, I won't seek revenge, but you must leave." They kicked me out. I spent the night in the rain, shivering with fever in front of the villa. The boy I raised called me a sick dog, and his biological mother said, "Son, she did raise you. Let's at least save her life." Then she threw me into a beggar's den. "If you're so needy, go find more men to satisfy you," she said. I was tortured to death by beggars. Remembering that pain made me tremble. Yet I still heard my husband say, "Wife, you raised this child yourself. He will be just as filial to you as our own child." My heart turned to ice. I would never rely on that beast. My eyes moved slightly. The most important thing now was to save my real son. Watching my husband pack, I asked him to buy food. Once he left, I walked to the two babies and quietly switched their positions and name tags. It happened so fast that my husband never noticed. The babies both looked like him anyway. When he returned, my son had just woken up. Because of the switch, my husband thought he was his ex-wife's child. Smiling, he said, "Wife, look how much Nathan looks like you." I forced a dry smile. He had no idea I'd switched them. In my previous life, he named my son Victor and his ex-wife's child Nathan. Only after my death did I realize he never wanted my child to survive. I held my son and felt my nose tingle. In this life, my son would be Nathan. Sure enough, upon discharge, my mother-in-law insisted on holding Victor because she wanted to be close to her eldest grandson. I used to think she liked my son because she liked me. But before she died, I overheard her conversation with the ex-wife. Though I knew it was a setup, I still fear getting caught in another car accident while holding that beast. My eyes settled on her trembling hands. How did I miss such obvious signs in my past life? Ellie, Mom wants to take Victor home, my husband said. I smiled and replied, Nathan is also your grandson. Why don't you take him instead? My mother-in-law's face darkened. Nathan's mother was a whore. She nearly pissed me off. I don't even want to look at the child she gave birth to. My husband hugged me and said, Our mother likes you. That's why she loves Victor. I sneered inwardly, but agreed. I took my son in my husband's car. On the way home, I quickly texted my secretary and asked him to suspend the share transfer. After marriage, I never did give the company to my husband. After giving birth to the child, my husband persuaded me that the company would definitely belong to the child in the future, and now he just helps to manage it for the child. I decided to transfer the shares to my husband, but I didn't expect that I was completely making wedding clothes for their family. After seeing the message from the secretary, I received a call before I could even put down my phone. The car that my mother-in-law and Victor were in had an accident. My husband looked at me in panic and said, Don't worry, honey. Let's go to the scene to see the situation first. But I wasn't in a hurry at all. Instead, I nodded calmly. My husband looked at me in surprise, thinking that I was too sad, and he kept comforting me on the way, telling me to be at ease. In my previous life, after learning that my son was in trouble, I was so heartbroken I couldn't breathe. That same feeling of despair surged through me again, and I couldn't control my trembling. Until I saw my son in my arms, my panicked heart finally calmed down. Perhaps it was because help came quickly this time. The ex-wife's child didn't die, but was sent to the intensive care unit. My husband assured me, Honey, the doctor will definitely try his best to save the child. Don't be too sad. My mother-in-law, in tears, knelt directly in front of me. Ellie, Mom really doesn't know why this happened. I'm going to die now. I'll go to the Hall of Yama and beg the King of Hell to spare my grandson. Seeing that she was about to jump off the building, I quickly stopped her. Mom, I don't blame you. Seeing my calm expression, my mother-in-law was surprised. I continued, Mom, this happened just after the child was born. It's the child's fate. She was stunned but quickly recovered. I knew you were the most understanding. Even if I lose everything, I'll definitely ask the doctor to save Victor. But I said, No need. Even if he is saved, his intelligence will be damaged. I don't need a useless child. It's better to leave the money to Nathan. My husband and mother-in-law were stunned. They were already puzzled by my calmness, but after hearing what I said, they even suspected I had gone mad. My husband grabbed my hand. Honey, your thinking is irrational. Victor rolled on the ground in pain. Diana looked at the tooth marks and kicked him. Beast. How dare you bite me, you loser who still wets his pants. I'm doing you a favor by letting you be my dog. Even my dogs don't pee randomly. Victor wanted to crawl away, but she stepped on his head again. Apologize to me now and bark like a dog, or I'll beat you to death today. Victor couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. Diana grew even angrier and was about to kill him when Nathan, hearing the noise, walked out of the room. My heart trembled. I feared Nathan would also be beaten by this crazy woman. But I was wrong. Diana stopped immediately when she saw Nathan. Her eyes turned red and she wanted to hug him, but Nathan asked coldly, Why did you hit my brother? Diana replied, He didn't listen and your auntie just taught him a lesson. Nathan, I heard you were admitted to the gifted class. Your auntie bought you a gift. She took out thousands of dollars worth of clothes and toys from her bag. Victor, lying on the ground, glanced at the gifts, and Diana slapped him. What are you looking at? Don't even think about coveting anything that belongs to Nathan. Nathan shouted, If you hit anyone again, I'll call the police. Diana stopped and immediately changed her expression. Nathan is such a soft-hearted, good child. My car happened to arrive home at that moment. After getting out, I opened the door. Instantly, all eyes were on me. Nathan quickly walked up to me and called, Mom, with a smile. A trace of jealousy flashed across Diana's eyes. I deliberately kissed Nathan's cheek in front of her and then asked, What's going on with Victor? My mother-in-law instantly panicked. Ellie, This is Diana's relative from her hometown. Victor was just ignorant, so Diana educated him. Diana rolled her eyes at me. What kind of genes do you have to give birth to a disabled child? You don't have to thank me for helping educate him. The truth is, if I don't teach him a lesson now, he might become mentally abnormal in the future. I stared at Diana. Did I ask you for help? If that makes sense to you, go explain it to the police. Seeing I was about to call the police, Diana panicked. It's clearly that bastard's problem. Why are you so unreasonable? Upon hearing this, Victor's breathing became rapid, his face flushed red. Seeing this, Diana kicked him. You're still pretending? Trash like you just wants attention. If you're sick, then die. Victor's condition worsened, began twitching and foaming at the mouth. What did you do to my son? I slapped her in the face. I didn't do anything. Diana panicked a little too. Who knew his body was so fragile? He had problems to begin with. If he dies, you should thank me. Anyway, he's already useless. Why don't you just focus on raising Nathan? I slapped her again. Diana tried to fight back, but my husband happened to come home and heard everything. He snorted. Diana, are you crazy? He quickly took Victor to the hospital. After a checkup, the doctor sighed and handed me the report. It clearly stated that Victor suffered from hereditary congenital heart disease. But my husband didn't have this disease, let alone pass it down. My eyes fell on Diana, who still looked annoyed. I think you just want to blackmail me. If you ask me, let that lame beast die. He's wasting social resources being alive. My husband gently pulled her sleeve, and only then did Diana stop cursing. The doctor turned to my husband. The child has a hereditary heart disease. You two should discuss how to treat it. Diana, who has heart disease, was stunned. Her face turned pale. She looked at the doctor in disbelief. What did you say? What's wrong with this child? The doctor grew impatient. If you didn't hear clearly, go to the ENT department. You were just cursing a child to death. What are you thinking? Let me tell you again, this child has a very serious congenital heart condition. He was hospitalized because of the emotional trauma you caused. Luckily, we saved him. Otherwise, you'd be going to jail. But Diana didn't hear anything else. She stood frozen. The child had a hereditary heart disease. She covered her heart and trembled all over, so the one lying inside was her own child. What did she do to her son? Diana still couldn't accept the reality. She looked up and asked me, Ellie, do you have a heart disease? I frowned and said, You're sick, right? I'm in good health. Now Diana was completely sure that the person lying inside, who was still undergoing the operation, was her own child. She walked back and forth in the ward with a ferocious look on her face, but she couldn't utter a word, like a madwoman who had suffered a great injustice. People around her looked at her in surprise. The mother-in-law quickly stepped forward to stop her. Diana, what are you doing here? But as soon as she finished speaking, Diana looked at her with horror and whispered something in her ear. Suddenly, the mother-in-law was also confused. She staggered back a few steps and burst into tears. What was going on? The husband also looked confused and wanted to ask what had happened, but before he could speak, the doctor said, You should decide how to treat it quickly. Do you want to have an operation or not? The moment I refused, Diana almost shouted yes at the same time. The doctor asked, Who should I listen to? I looked at Diana. This is my child. Why are you interfering? Just now you cursed my son to die. Are you trying to take the opportunity to frame him now? The mother-in-law quickly stepped forward to smooth things over. Diana, she didn't mean that. You watch her abuse my child, so you shut up too. I yelled at the mother-in-law. Because my voice was too loud, it attracted many onlookers. Someone in the crowd whispered, What happened? Hearing this, Diana knelt on the ground and began to cry. She pointed a finger at me and said, This woman is not worthy of being a mother. Everyone please take a look. Her child has a congenital heart disease and needs urgent surgery, but because the child is disabled, this woman is going to give up the treatment. The eyes of the people around instantly fell on me. How could there be such a cruel mother who wouldn't save her own child? Yes, the child didn't want to be disabled. She, as a mother, cannot be responsible. Why did she give birth to the child? She looked like a decent person but turned out to be a beast. But some people also said, How could a mother do such a thing to her own child? Could there be a hidden story behind this? The child was in a car accident when he was just born and was in the intensive care unit, needing surgery. Everyone was willing to pay, but she, as a mother, was unwilling to do so just because she didn't want a disabled son. The mother-in-law burst into tears, and her red eyes pierced me fiercely. She continued, "But that is a life." My son and I insisted, and only then did we save the child. As she spoke, she glanced at my husband. Although he didn't know what had happened, when he saw the mother-in-law asking him for help, he quickly said, "This did happen at the time," then turned around and persuaded me. "My wife, although Victor is a disabled child, he's our child after all. I really can't bear to give up on him. Let's save him. Just consider it as me begging you." Looking at my husband's humble and pleading look, I smiled, turned around and asked him, "Brian, are you sure you want to make the same decision as them?" Brian was stunned where he stood. He noticed something wrong in my words. He was about to ask me if I had heard something, but the people around him spoke first. "Who are you? You're threatening your husband. Do you know that what you're doing is against the law? You obviously want to abandon the child and abuse the child. You want to torture the child to death." I really wanted to slap her. Seeing that someone next to me was about to hit me, the doctor quickly said, "It is also illegal for you to do this in the hospital." The passerby was already very angry. Seeing that he couldn't hit me, he turned around and called the police. Seeing that the situation was about to get out of control, the mother-in-law quickly stopped the passerby who was about to call. After all, this is the child's biological mother. When the child finds out, he will inevitably be sad. "I will talk to her again." The passerby stopped dialing. The mother-in-law said to me earnestly, "Ellie, we just want to save Victor. Why should a family go to the police station? As long as you agree to save the child, we will never let you take out a penny." I took out the money I had saved to buy a cemetery and gave it to Victor. Seeing that my mother-in-law was so righteous, I almost believed it. I looked at her and said, "Mom, why haven't I seen you love Victor so much before?" My mother-in-law was stunned. My husband pushed my shoulder hard and said, "How can you slander others? Since the 2 children were born, our mother has come to help you take care of them. Hasn't she taken good care of each child?" My mother-in-law began to wipe her tears again. "Ellie, I am a rough person. The 2 children may not satisfy you, but I have done my best. How can you say that I don't love Victor?" I almost laughed out loud. Although my mother-in-law was nominally at home to help take care of the children, the family had hired 5 nannies. Apart from abusing Victor, she had done nothing. But people around me began to say I was an accomplice and suggested I be sent to the police station as soon as possible. I didn't answer, just silently took out the home surveillance footage. The moment I showed it, the people who had just offended my mother-in-law shut up instantly. In the footage, my mother-in-law blocked Victor in the bathroom, storage room, and basement, insulting and beating him. The youngest child in the video was only 1 year old and couldn't even speak, but he was beaten and scolded by his grandmother until he curled up in a corner and cried. Victor was visibly inferior, but his grandmother became even more domineering. Is this his grandmother? How could she insult and beat a child like this? This is child abuse. No wonder this damn old woman didn't want us to call the police. It turns out she was the one who committed the crime. The grandmother kept backing away, but the crowd had already formed a circle, and she couldn't get out. In the end, her legs went weak and she collapsed to the ground. Diana also began to feel guilty after seeing the footage. She trembled all over and looked up at me. I met her gaze with a smile. "I have evidence of her child abuse and, of course, I have yours too." I took out the surveillance footage of the 2 of them beating the child on the day Victor had the accident. Diana became even more guilty. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, "It was you who harmed your son step by step." Diana collapsed, covering her head and screaming. Why was she collapsing here? The one who should be collapsing is the child. With such an experience, the child is completely ruined. It's really amazing that she, a bad person, started crying first. Diana suddenly looked up when she heard this. She slapped herself in the face like crazy, saying over and over, "I was wrong. I was really wrong." My husband at the side became anxious. "Ellie, that's enough." Even if my mother and Diana did something wrong, don't they want to change now? Why do you have to hold on to the past? You are so vicious. I snorted coldly. Isn't it your family that is vicious? Brian frowned slightly. What do you mean? I ignored him but turned to look at the people around me. Aren't you curious why my mother-in-law and Diana would be so cruel to a child? Now I will tell you the truth. The moment Brian heard what I said, his face turned pale, and the eyes of the people around him fell on me. Because of the escalation of the incident, some reporters who were close to the scene had already rushed to the scene. They wanted to report on me, the irresponsible mother, but they didn't expect that things would be reversed again, and they would catch such a big news. Brian looked at me vigilantly. What do you want to say? I smiled lightly. Of course I will tell everyone the truth. The reason why they abused Victor was because they regarded Victor as my child. The people around were confused and didn't understand what I meant at all, but my husband's family was completely stunned. Brian walked towards me and asked in a weak voice, How did you know? I did not answer Brian but was anxious to explain the truth to the people around me. When the secretary posted the complete incident online, everyone went to check it out. After reading it, everyone's face showed disbelief. They never thought that such a thing would really happen. Oh my God, pretending to be divorced and hanging out with a rich woman is fine, but they even wanted to kill the rich woman's child. The sister who was set up is really miserable. It's not the society's fault that men are prejudiced against men.
Who wouldn't be scared?
So the rich woman's sister changed the child. They have been abusing their precious grandson for so many years. No wonder that Diana collapsed after learning the truth. You damn thing, you deserve it, mother-in-law shouted. No, it's not like that. Ellie is talking nonsense. She looked at me with bloodshot eyes. You have no evidence, but you are spreading rumors here. Who said I don't have evidence? I posted all the evidence of their planning on the internet, especially the large amount of evidence that mother-in-law and Diana said when they talked privately. After rebirth, I thought about making a comeback. Of course, I have to keep the evidence well and let them suffer the consequences of their own actions. Looking at the pale faces of their family, netizens gave hot comments one after another. It's so cool, it's a really cool article, and they just asked for a hammer. The husband knelt on the ground with tears in his eyes. Wife, I'm different from the two of them. I have always loved you. When I divorced Diana, I was sincere. I was just afraid that Diana would go crazy, so I told her this was a plan. She left me after I went bankrupt. How could I continue to love her, wife? The mother-in-law also said quickly, Ellie, it has always been this woman Diana who is making trouble. She relied on her son to come here with us and made an excuse. You and Brian are husband and wife. We are a family, and who is this Diana? Diana was stunned. She sneered, Okay, you want to kick someone when he's down, right? Diana took out the evidence that she and Brian checked into a hotel room. From the time Brian and I started to get in touch until now, they would find a chance to be together for 3 days every month. This is disgusting. I really feel sorry for the rich sister. This man deserves to die, no. Both the bastards deserve to die. I did know about this, but after seeing Diana's evidence, I couldn't stop trembling all over. Brian, divorce is certain. Brian completely collapsed, but Diana was still saying at this time, What are you afraid of? Since it has come to this, let's kick Ellie out of the company, and our family life will be better. The mother-in-law also said, That's right. This woman doesn't know what's good for her. Son, don't give her face. Everyone present was stunned. They never expected that their family could be so shameless. Just when the onlookers felt sorry for me and thought I might be framed, Brian turned around and slapped them both in the face. You are still dreaming. The company has always been in Ellie's hands. Make a fuss now, you're done with it, but your whole family will starve in the future. What did you say? Diana couldn't believe it and questioned Brian. You haven't even taken down a company in all these years. If you weren't such an idiot, I would have taken it down if I waited a while. Brian suddenly threw Diana to the ground. Diana burst into tears immediately. I've been humble for you outside, but you're so incompetent. Diana slapped Brian in the face, but Brian didn't let her hit him. The two of them instantly started fighting. Seeing them fighting each other with black eyes and swollen faces, the doctor quickly called the security guard to separate them. Don't make a scene here. It's the child who is in a hurry now. The doctor looked at me. You are the child's mother in the legal sense. It's up to you whether you want treatment or not. No treatment. I don't want this child either, I answered firmly. Victor was also pushed out of the ward at that time, with tears welling up in his eyes. Mom, don't you want me anymore? He is indeed very pitiful now, but I know that he is a complete, ungrateful person. Thinking of his behavior in his previous life, I gnashed with hatred and sneered. I'm not your mother. Diana is your biological mother. But he burst into tears and said that he didn't want Diana to be his mother. She's a bad girl. Diana stepped forward quickly and grabbed his ears tightly. You heartless thing. I carried you for 10 months and risked my life to give birth to you. Come home with me. Diana picked up Victor and walked out. Brian didn't want to be watched by the crowd, so he went to the doctor to process his discharge. The mother-in-law fled in panic. I kicked them out of the house that day, and Brian was naturally penniless, not to mention the surgery for Victor in the future. My son was a little surprised when he saw everything that happened suddenly. I thought about it and decided to talk to him as much as possible. My son probably understood what I meant and held my hand tightly. Although I don't understand some things, I listened to my mother. I smiled and held my son in my arms. My child is still easy to raise. The divorce procedures were handled quickly because I had enough evidence. Brian was directly sentenced to leave the house with nothing. Netizens were not idle either. After the incident on that day fermented, they all used my evidence to say that Diana and my mother-in-law were suspected of child abuse. The police still noticed this incident and immediately arrested the mother-in-law and Diana. After the trial, they directly sentenced the two to 10 years in prison. I thought this matter would be over, but I didn't expect that 1 month after Diana and others were imprisoned, Brian's live broadcast room suddenly became popular. He asked Victor, a disabled person, to perform talents in the live broadcast room and attract rewards like a monkey. The reason why everyone was attracted to this live broadcast room was because they thought they were inspirational people, but they soon discovered that Brian was the person involved in the child-changing incident in the hospital at that time. They reported the live broadcast room one after another, causing their account to be banned for a time. After this road was blocked, they came up with a new way to disgust me. Victor directly expressed in the live broadcast room that he hopes to continue to be my child, and he insists on live broadcasting and filming videos every day, which reveal his cautious longing for me. Sometimes he would send flowers to the downstairs of my company, and sometimes he would cook frozen dumplings as lunch. He often cried in front of the camera, "Mom, they're all wrong, but I have never done anything wrong. Why can you be so cruel to me?" But I completely ignored his filial piety. He is too thoughtful. Even if he really wants to come back to me, there are ways to contact me privately, but he has to put it in front of the public and put me on the moral high ground. I was so good to him in the previous life, but he still betrayed me. It was just that he thought I was useless at that time, and now he just thinks I am useful. But I didn't refuse directly. After all, it's better to have less contact with such a cruel person, so as not to be hated by him. My son came to persuade me, saying that Victor did nothing wrong. I haven't figured out how to tell my son about the past life, and my son took back his words that Victor was not wrong because he was entangled by Brian. Brian finds excuses to visit his son every day. I confessed my love for my son in front of him, and he told me, "Mom, Dad wanted to kill me at the beginning. Who would believe it if I told others? I know you must have your own reasons for not forgiving Victor." After my son and I both gave the cold shoulder, gradually their dogskin plasters stopped sticking to us. But I know they are living a hard life. After all, Brian has been banned from the entire industry since that incident. Victor is a disabled person and has no ability to make money. Brian can only do odd jobs. When he is in a bad mood, he takes it out on Victor. But as Victor grew up, rebellious thoughts surged in his heart. Sometimes he would beat up drunk Brian. I don't care how hard their lives are because my son had independently led a team to complete a project when he was still in school. After he graduated, I handed the company directly to him. On the day my son inherited the company, Brian came. I hadn't seen him for a long time. He looked so old that I almost didn't recognize him. He cried and shouted in the audience, saying that my son was unfilial and didn't support him, but my son asked someone to kick him out. Brian was desperate and chose to call the police directly. The police knew my son's difficulties, but I could only say, in the legal sense, you do have to support your father. Then I choose to buy out the relationship with him and sever the father-son relationship. After my son made the decision, I thought Brian would make a fuss, but I didn't expect that he would be grinning from ear to ear when he got the money. But on the night Brian brought the money home, he died. Victor said that he died of drinking. Since Brian's death, Victor has been living a good life with the money. He hooked up with some foot-washing girls. After his mother and grandmother were released from prison, Victor even introduced them to a job. That's right, he sold his own mother and grandmother to be girls. The next time I saw Diana was when I was stargazing on the 18th floor with my son. My son saw Diana being chased and beaten in the alley through the astronomical telescope. I later learned that Diana had infected a customer with a dirty disease, and the customer brought the disease back home, and the people directly killed her to teach her a lesson. Diana was beaten half to death, but after returning home, she was beaten again by Victor. Diana cried heartbreakingly and asked him, "How could you do this to me? I'm your mother." But Victor said, "Didn't you deliberately harm me? What's wrong with me doing that?" Diana completely collapsed and kept crying at home. Victor thought she was too noisy, so he raised his hand and killed her. The mother-in-law happened to see Victor killing someone, and she curled up on the ground out of fear, but was eventually killed as well. This time, Victor wanted to say that they committed suicide, but the police didn't believe it at all. Victor was sentenced to death. On the day of execution, he applied to see me. Looking at me, his face was full of guilt, but he smiled bitterly. "Mom, let's see you in the next life." My eyes trembled slightly. "What do you mean?" He raised his hand and slapped himself. "I had a dream. In the dream, I felt very sorry for you, but I felt that it was not a dream. If not, you didn't stop them when they beat me in this life, which is also the right thing to do." I think he must have dreamed about things in his previous life, but I didn't have any psychological changes because of his words, because the wicked deserve to die. After it was all over, I returned home, and my son came to me with flowers, smiling and said, "Mom, I will never hear from them again."